The wilderness is a place of beauty and silence, where the wind carries secrets and the trees stand like ancient watchers. But beyond the beauty, deep within the woods, lies a darkness that few dare to face. The following are 3 allegedly true stories, encounters so disturbing that even seasoned explorers swore never to return. These are not just tales, these are warnings. And if you ever find yourself alone in the wilderness at night, remember these voices and don't look back. The first story comes from a man named Elijah, a wildlife photographer from Oregon. He spent his life chasing beauty, mist over mountains, wolves in the dawn light, the perfection of untouched wilderness. One late autumn, Elijah hiked deep into a region of forest he'd never explored before, a place locals called the Silent Vale. They said that even the wind avoided those trees. He laughed at the superstition, but when he set up camp that night, the forest was unnaturally still. No crickets, no owls, not even the whisper of leaves, just silence so thick it pressed against his ears. As he dozed in his tent, his camera still running outside to capture the night, he heard it, a faint humming. It sounded like someone softly singing, a woman's voice echoing far through the trees. He thought it was a hallucination born of fatigue, until he saw the silhouette pass across his tent wall, slow, graceful but not human in movement. He froze, watching the shadow drift by, stopping just outside the tent. The humming ceased. Then came a whisper, right at the thin nylon fabric. Elijah. He didn't remember telling anyone his name. By morning, his camera was gone. Days later, a ranger found it wedged between rocks beside a frozen creek miles from Elijah's camp. The footage was almost all static, except for a few seconds, his tent in the distance, and something pale standing among the trees, watching. The figure turned toward the lens, and its mouth moved like it was mouthing words. Then the screen went black. Elijah never returned to the forest. He told his story once on a podcast, voice trembling, before disappearing entirely from public life. Some say he moved to the city. Others claim he went back to the Silent Vale to find out who or what called his name. The second story happened to a group of college friends, hiking in the Rocky Mountains in 2018. They were experienced campers, confident, prepared, and full of bravado. But none of that helped them when the forest decided to play tricks on them. On their second night, they built a campfire near a narrow valley and joked about mountain spirits. Around midnight, one of them, Tyler, woke up to the sound of crackling firewood. The flames had nearly gone out, but he could see someone sitting across the fire. Thinking it was one of his friends, he said, "You couldn't sleep either?" The figure didn't answer. Tyler squinted, realizing the person was sitting too still, too stiff. He whispered his friend's name, but still no response. Then, as he reached for his flashlight, the figure rose. It was tall, unnaturally tall, its arms hanging almost to its knees. The firelight flickered just long enough for him to see its face, or lack of one. There were only dark indentations where eyes should have been, and a jagged hole where a mouth might have been carved. Tyler screamed, waking the others. When they shone their lights around, the figure was gone. They thought it was a bear at first. But there were no tracks, just deep prints in the soil shaped like long, narrow feet. The next morning, one of the tents was slashed open from the inside. They didn't wait to pack up properly. They just ran. None of them have ever spoken publicly about what happened after, but local rescue teams claim that months later, hikers reported seeing a tall, faceless thing wandering that same valley. They call it the Hollow Man. The third story comes from a park ranger named Carla, stationed in northern Canada. She had worked in the wilderness for years, rescuing lost hikers and patrolling remote trails. One evening, she got a distress call, a faint signal from a missing hiker named Dean. His GPS beacon was flickering, showing movement deep inside an area known for sinkholes and abandoned mine shafts. Carla set out immediately, following the signal as the forest thickened and daylight faded. By nightfall, she was alone under a canopy so dense her flashlight felt useless. The signal grew stronger, but every time she thought she was getting closer, it would jump a few meters away, as if someone was carrying it deeper into the dark. She finally reached an open clearing surrounded by black pines. The air was still. The beacon was right in front of her, lying on the ground, but there was no sign of Dean. As she picked it up, she noticed footprints, his boots, circling the same area over and over, like he'd been walking around something invisible. Then she saw it, a handprint pressed into the mud. But it was too long, with fingers stretching far beyond human length. Carla ran, radioing for backup, but the forest seemed to twist around her. Every direction looked the same. The sound of snapping branches followed her, slow but deliberate. She didn't look back, even when she heard breathing right behind her. She finally stumbled into a ranger cabin near dawn, terrified and half delirious. When the rescue team returned to the clearing, they found no footprints, no beacon, no sign of Dean. Only one thing remained, a handprint, fresh in the mud, larger than a man's face, still dripping with moisture as if someone had just pulled it from the earth. Carla quit her job soon after. In her final report, she wrote one sentence that still haunts the archives. "The forest remembers who walks it after dark." These were only a few of the many stories buried in the heart of the wilderness. For every hiker who returns safely, there are whispers of those who don't. The woods hide more than wildlife. They hide what's ancient, watching, and hungry. Maybe it's better not to know. Maybe some trails are meant to stay untouched. If you've ever walked alone through the forest at night, you know the feeling, that cold shiver down your spine, the sense that you're not alone. So next time you step into the wild, remember these stories. And if you hear your name whispered in the dark, don't answer. The wilderness doesn't forget. It holds memories in its roots, echoes in its valleys, and whispers them through the wind to anyone foolish enough to listen. The stories you heard in Chapter 1. Elijah the photographer, the college friends in the Rockies, and Carla the ranger weren't isolated events. They were threads in a much bigger web. And as strange as it sounds, the forest isn't just alive. It's aware. This is what happened next. Months after Elijah vanished from Oregon's Silent Vale, local hikers began reporting odd sightings, bright camera flashes, deep in the trees at night, like someone was taking pictures. When rangers went to investigate, they found freshly set camera traps, but no sign of who placed them. One photo recovered from a damaged SD card showed something horrific. A figure standing just behind the camera but not in front of it, as if reflected from a direction that didn't exist. The face was blurred, stretched, its mouth unnaturally wide. One of those rangers, a man named Alex Brenner, told in his final radio transmission that he heard faint clicking noises, like a camera shutter, following him as he hiked back toward the station. He said the sound got closer each time. He turned around until it was right beside his ear. The transmission ended with a static-filled whisper that text later enhanced. It wasn't his voice. It said, "You took my picture." Alex's backpack was found hanging from a pine branch 2 days later, but his body was never recovered. Some say Elijah's spirit haunts that forest now, still taking photos of whatever moves between the trees. Others believe something far older has learned how to mimic us using light and sound the way a hunter uses bait. As for the Rocky Mountain hikers, the ones who met the Hollow Man, their lives were never the same. Tyler, the one who first saw it, became obsessed with proving it was real. He went back to the same valley a year later, armed with cameras and motion sensors. He live-streamed the entire trip, his voice shaking but determined. At first, everything was calm. Hours passed. Then, viewers noticed something strange in the chat, faint, movements behind him on the stream. Dark shapes shifting between trees. Tyler didn't seem to notice until the chat exploded with warnings. "Behind you," someone typed. He turned his camera, and for one brief, horrifying second, the stream caught it. A tall, faceless figure emerging from the darkness, moving in an almost insect-like gait, its body too thin, too fluid. Tyler dropped the camera and ran. The stream ended with the sound of heavy breathing and crunching leaves. His car was later found near the trailhead, engine running, door open, headlights pointed toward the woods. Inside, on the passenger seat, lay his phone. The video saved automatically, looping the last 5 seconds. A shaky glimpse of the figure leaning closer to the lens. When the police reviewed the footage, they said something chilling. At the very end, right before the feed cut, you could hear multiple voices whispering in unison, repeating one sentence. "You shouldn't have come back." The government labeled it an unexplained disappearance, but locals know better. They say the Hollow Man doesn't just wander aimlessly. It remembers faces. It waits for those who mock it to return. And when they do, It takes something from them, not their life, but their reflection, their identity. Maybe that's why no one recognized Tyler's remains when they were found years later. Then there's Carla, the ranger. She had sworn off the wilderness, but something kept calling her back. Nightmares plagued her, trees twisting into shapes of human faces, the sound of her own radio echoing with a voice that wasn't hers. One day, she received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photo, a grainy image of the same clearing she'd found, Dean's Beacon Inn. And standing in the center was a figure, tall and skeletal, its head tilted unnaturally to one side. Scrawled on the back of the photo were 4 words: "You left him here." Driven by guilt or madness, Carla returned to the forest one last time. She took her body cam and recorded everything. The footage begins with her walking through thick fog, muttering that she needed to put it right. Hours pass, and the forest grows darker. Then, faintly, she hears Dean's voice calling for help. She runs, crying, "I'm coming!" The signal on her camera flickers. The trees start to distort. The sound of her footsteps overlapping with whispering, almost like the forest itself is speaking. In the final minute of the footage, Carla reaches the same clearing, but this time, there's something there. The ground moves, pulsing like it's alive. A shape rises from it, long arms, a featureless face smeared with mud, its head twitching. It stretches its hand toward her and whispers something that makes her drop the camera. "Stay." The last image the camera captures. Before shutting off is the hand, 5 impossibly long fingers wrapping around the lens. Carla was never found. But weeks later, a hiker discovered her body cam nailed to a tree. No one knows who left it there. After these events, authorities quietly closed off those regions. Officially, they blamed unstable terrain and wildlife danger. Unofficially, the locals tell a different story. They say the wilderness has become something else, alive, hungry, aware. It remembers every scream, every name called into the dark. It waits for those who trespass without respect, and sometimes it follows them home. If you ever find yourself camping deep in the wild and the night grows too still, if you hear your name whispered or see movement just beyond your light, don't investigate. Don't take pictures. Don't look twice. The forest doesn't want you to see it. It wants you to join it. These are not just stories. They're warnings from those who never came back. And maybe, just maybe, they're still out there, walking beneath the trees, lost between our world and something far older. If you made it this far into the story, you're braver than most. But remember, bravery has a price. So before you turn off this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and join our growing community of horror seekers. Because what's coming next is even darker, deeper, and far more real than you can imagine. Stay tuned. If you dare,